Is that
Yes.
the Nepo baby to the Nepo baby?
This is the Nepo baby to the Nepo baby. She's the chosen one, the one who'll carry the lineage forward.
Classic Nepo Baby accessory.
Of course, yeah. White,
Little
gross
white dog.
little white dog with the gross
Gross.
eyes. I'm really
Oh.
on brand. It's really important to me to just keep it really true, you know? That lack of reality that you grow up in really does affect you. And I'm lucky that I was able to, like, leave Los Angeles and go to school elsewhere and like see other parts of life and other people's lives and other realities, because I can see how kids here who never leave or who are, grow up in the industry, you know, turn out to be the monsters that we hear about.
Well, are we ready for our exposure, Jackie? Are we ready
No,
to shred our stuff down the red carpets and
absolutely not.
take another take on how to do this life?
I mean, how to do this life and how we should have done it was really just being born better. And unfortunately, we are already here. And I have been trying to get a new father for like 17, 20 something years, and I still don't have one. So I don't think that I'm going to win the lottery on getting my Nepo parents
And
quite
listen,
yet.
I've been working on a daddy, but he's playing hard to get right now.
You
So
guys can borrow mine. I don't know how other Nepo babies feel, but I personally hate watching what my parents have done. Like, I don't watch any of it. Like, I look at it from afar on the IMDb just to, like, as a frame of reference. But, like, I refuse to watch any of it because I personally think it's a very dissociative experience to watch your parents, like, um, stand up for me has always been something that I have loved, like since I was very young. Like my dad, I think if he hadn't gone his path and, had the gumption, if you will, to like go to open mics and try it, like I do believe he would have been a really successful stand up. But it is a soul, as Rebecca knows, it is a soul crushing activity to try and do for funds.
So wait, he has tried it already though?
No, not yet. Oh,
Okay.
side note, my dad told me this morning, I think I'm going to go start doing open mics. And I was like, God help me. God help me.
He's gonna kill it. He's gonna be amazing. He's gonna have a second career as a
From
stand-up,
your mouth
and
to
you're
God's ears, Rebecca, because I'm going to send him and you can deal with that while I'm in,
oh, I'll give him the business.
yeah, while I'm in Indonesia, so far away. Like, um,
Okay, can you imagine a more classic Nepo baby sentence? I'm gonna be in Indonesia while my dad is doing stand-up. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I hope you have rich parents. And if you don't, stay tuned for this episode. Welcome to the pod. We're experts now. I'm your co host, Rebecca.
I'm your other co host, Jackie, and here we are for another week with your two besties. We're here just waiting for all of you to join us. One of these days, we'll get every single one of you on this show.
Join the
Won't we,
cult. I mean, community.
exactly. Uh, how you been lately? Anything exciting happen?
Oh, so much. I had to sign an NDA today. That's a big
Mhm.
step. I feel like
Mhm.
anytime you got to do that, that it means something.
She's
So,
fancy.
but I
She
can't talk
is
about it.
fancy. You can't
Sorry.
talk about it. Don't talk about
NDA,
it.
baby.
We don't know what she's talking about. Not even. So I love that. That's great.
How about you? What's going on in your world?
Oh man, I'm still post surgery, as everyone will remember. I feeling great. Everything's been going good for me. Love and life. I am still on blood thinners because I have to be on them for a total of 6 months. So I decided that things have been a lot lately. Need to take a break. Booked a massage. I like a really rough massage. Like the best massage I ever got was from an MMA fighter.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he like just really got in there. I was for it. So I always say like as hard as possible, like destroy my world is my personal preference. This was the hardest massage I've ever gotten in my life, and
Okay.
for the first time ever, I had to be like a little softer would be great. But what I didn't think about was the deep tissue massage combined with the blood thinners. Yeah, your brain is going to the
Oh,
right place.
yes.
I was destroyed.
You look like you got run over by a truck.
I like the whole back of my arm in particular was just black, and I looked so bad. And it was like it's like summer, right? So I'm wearing sleeveless shirts and stuff, and It was embarrassing. I definitely was at an event and a lot of people saw it, and I was like, I swear no one's hurting me. I swear I'm fine. I'm really
No one's
good.
hurting you that you aren't paying for.
It's true. That's true. That's true. So I learned a lesson. No more deep tissue massages with butt thinners, which is great. Only got a couple more months of this left. Actually, by the time this episode comes out, I will be getting so much closer to actually being off them. So here's to the
Wow.
future me.
Well, and as in all things, we're opposites here. I like a tenderoni massage. I don't get deep tissue massage. I get deep issue massage. I always cry when I get massages because I got all my, and it's not weird. I Googled
It
it.
is
It
definitely weird.
happens.
Just because
Comment
it
if you
happens,
also cry when you get massages.
just because it happens doesn't make it not weird. Okay?
Okay, fair enough. I accept
Like,
that.
I do a lot of stuff, happens to a lot of people, still weird. Still weird.
Yeah, the last time I got a massage, the masseuse was like, "Oh, strong back. Are you a swimmer?" I was like, "I was once." Keep going, keep going. He gave me a towel. He had a towel ready for me to cry into. That's how much it's happening
He's like, just
out
put it
here.
over your mouth so you can be quiet. It's there to gag you. Actually, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to get my job done. Ah. Okay, speaking about getting our jobs done, what
Hey,
are we talking about today?
we are talking about getting the job done from birth, okay? We're talking Nepo babies. You've been
Oh, God.
hearing about it. It's in the zeitgeist. And I've been wondering, like, what did we call Nepo babies before we had the term Nepo
Trust fund
babies, which
kids.
is short for nepotism babies. Yeah, so trust fund, trustafarian, but I feel like this is a little more specific
Rich kids.
well, have you heard trustafarian before? That
I
I came
never heard
across
that, but I do love it.
that
That's
I came
great.
across. That's a specific brand, a breed in like Boulder, Colorado is where I came across it. But it's those
Okay.
people who they seem like they're hippy dippy, dreadlocks, yogurt, granola, meditation, living close to the land, living affordably. And it's like, yeah, because you have a trust fund. So you can go dumpster dive with your friends and be vegan.
Silver spoon baby. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Nepo
But
baby, trust fund
Nepo
baby.
baby, I think I don't think it only applies to people whose parents are, say, actors. I think because
Oh
it's
no,
short for
yeah, it applies to
nepotism. So
yeah.
any kind of,
Like, so this could be like your parents were owned a railroad and
yeah.
you got into the railroad business. Anything from business to media to anywhere that you're gonna get like an edge, right? So I imagine a parent who works out of college, right? They may not be a famous parent, but like that kid getting into that college based off of only their parents' connection to it, I would consider that a nepo baby.
Yeah, I think it's come into a high usage moment because now we are seeing this next wave of children who are or people who are the children of stars and actors in particular, and kind of the shortcut route that sometimes they get a lot of doors open for them. And our guest today, whom I love, and she is beloved to me, she is such a force to be reckoned with. She's going to make a strong case. Well, she's an aspiring Nepo baby, actually. She'll tell us more about that, but she has parents that are actors, and I think that it's interesting what doors it opens, but then maybe what some misconceptions there are, and that nevertheless you have to have your own direction, talent, gumption, the things that come with success and the hard work it takes.
Yeah, so I feel like the easy part of this is like, how do you become a nepo baby? Well, it's a birthright. I think that one's pretty answer that answer is pretty easy to get to, but like, what do you do to cultivate that? And I think in particular, I imagine that like a lot of people want to, make a name for themselves, right? So I imagine that as much as being a nepo baby could be really, really helpful to you, I'm sure that people also want people to think that you're talented as well on your own right. So I think that you probably also have to go over that. Like when I got into politics and I was really young, my boss at one point told me like to wear more like not that I wasn't wearing not that I was wearing inappropriate clothing, but to wear, conservative clothing because I was very young and people would think that I maybe got my job for a reason that I didn't
Wow.
because I worked for an older man, right? So I think that there's that exists in a lot of different worlds in a different way. That's getting more into privilege, but I think that kind of same thing exists. I didn't want anyone to think that way of me, and I'm still that way at work. Like, I won't date people at work. Like, I'm very like, I don't want those worlds to meet because I want to stand on my own 2 feet. Um, so I think,
Yeah. And I think also there's probably some element of, like, you're even bringing up the negative side, like, don't look like you got this job the wrong way. And also, I wonder if people have the experience of living in the shadow of their successful parents or relatives, of, like, all of Bob Marley's children, and all, like, comedians, George Carlin and his children, and just all the Bob Dylan, his son, I think, is also in the business. And Nicolas Cage, he didn't want to use the last name Coppola because he didn't want people to know that he was related to Francis Ford Coppola. And how much, like, you have to maybe also distance yourself to try to prove yourself, even just for yourself spiritually. But then also, yeah, people who want to be like, nah, he's just the son of somebody. It's like, you want to prove your merit on your own.
yeah, I think that exists in a lot of different places. Yeah, like, I was reading, it was interesting. Jackie Chan's son,
Mm.
like, isn't inheriting any Jackie Chan's money because he wants his son to, like, make it on his own. And even within my family, my brother, like, isn't filthy rich or anything, but he's definitely not poor either. And he said to me, "Oh, yeah, my daughter, if we pass, she gets all the money. Like, it's not in a trust where she gets X amount. Like, she gets to decide how she spends her money, the money. And if she spends it all at once, then we raised her wrong. Like, but that's her choice." And, like, it was funny because my mom was like, "Oh, I don't agree with that." And I was just like, I see both sides, honestly. Like, I see the side to withholding and making sure people make it on their own. I also see the side of, like, I worked my butt off and I want to give my kid every advantage in the world. I think the important thing is that I think in a lot of these communities, when you have money and status and all of that, you don't appreciate the little people, or you don't teach your children to do that. And so that's
Mm.
when I don't like spoiled rich kids. Like, I am all for, like, use what you got. If it's a tool that you have, like, yeah, it sucks as a person who doesn't have that tool, it sucks to not have it, but you do. Why not use it? Like, that's the smart thing to do. I would, if I had nepotism that I could use, like, I would absolutely do that. But I think it can go anyway with this.
Yeah, but I sure wish I was that's my aspiration also, is to be a Nepo baby. Also, it's like, we don't talk enough about Nepo parents, okay? What about when I make
Mm-hmm.
it big and then I make my parents rich,
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
do deserve that. That's what you're supposed to do for your parents, right? And help them out once they help you.
Yeah, I think so. I'd help my mom. I'm like, if my dad was still alive, I don't know if I would help him, but I would absolutely
Get
help my
a nice
mom.
new headstone.
Oh, so you want to know? This is totally a sidetrack, but
Oh
you.
no.
So, okay, I don't know how I'm going to tell this story. Okay, but so my dad, died a long time ago. First off, he was cremated, but, like, my uncle or my grandfather, I can't remember who, insisted on getting him, like, a gravestone. So there's, like, an empty grave in Ohio or wherever that, like, holds nothing. And, like, after we got him cremated, like, my uncle called and, like, asked him to, like, send, like, like, a cup of dad.
No.
Just a little
Just
cup
a
of dad.
pinch.
Just a little bit to put on the grave,
Hey, do you have a
So, like,
spare cup of dad I can borrow? For what? To put in, like, a
to
keepsake
put on
kind
the
of thing?
grave, so, like, it would be like he was
Oh.
there. And we
He's
were
not there
like,
anyway. He's
well,
gone. He's moved
yeah, and we were
on.
like, new phone, who dis? Oh god. Okay, I'm such an asshole. I know that one of my uncles listens and I love him. Shout out to you. And if my other uncle listens, shout out to you, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Mhm. No cup of dad.
Yeah, family
No cup of
relations
dad.
just get so complicated. It's already complicated enough, and it's like, how do you know you want to go into, like, the same kind of business? I guess that's one type of nepotism, where it's like, oh, I'm using my parents' success as actors to get
Mhm.
my foot in the door of acting. It's kind of
Succession
like,
is a great example too. Like that's a great
yeah.
one of business, right? That is nepotism to the finest, right? The only one who had a job outside of that was Siobhan. So like, and she was the one, kind of what we were just talking about, went and cut her teeth in her own ways. Now she still had nepotism because she had connections, she had wealth, she had a lot of things that a lot of other people didn't have, but she didn't go into the same industry forthright as her father.
Yeah. And that whole show is about, which I loved, was just like, are we going to be rich, powerful people of our dreams, or are we going to be slightly rich, slightly less powerful people? It's like they always had that safety net of billions and billions of dollars and the security of job and financial. And then it's like, well, what does it take? What's the spiritual toll that takes on you for each of them? You know, that's the big question mark, is how do you define yourself and your trajectory and your identity inside of this, like, and it's like, also, you are in a bubble, so how do you even acknowledge your privilege? It's like those bubble people who never get rejected, no one says no to them, everyone talks them up. And like, I think actually Dave Chappelle has talked about this, where he likes a couple no people because so many people, I can't remember which comedian it was, but it's like he wants someone who's not just like, yeah, that was the best. He's like someone who's like, I didn't like this, because no one says no to you, no one says you
It's
have a
me.
bad idea.
I'm that person that's like, have you thought this through? But like, yeah, like it was, I watched like an Instagram on this reel the other night, and the guy was like, you need a gay dude friend because he's like the one who will always tell you the truth of how you look. You need somebody to tell you the truth. And I do think that happens with a lot of like nepotism, with wealth, with privilege, and all of those things, even beauty, right? Like those things all give you, and I think that's kind of where I was going with that, saying like treating people below you nice. Like I think that's what it can do to a lot of people. Like I've become more successful over the years, and I have to at times like remember that like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I wasn't making very much money. I was struggling. I lived in a really bad area at one point, and even now like I have to remind myself like you need to be grateful, right? Like it's really easy to be like, oh, but now this is my life and I travel the world and everything's so great. But that wasn't my reality for very long. And if I lose touch of what my reality is, then it's really easy to be like, why are people homeless? Like, I can't even
Yeah.
understand. Like, so I
And they've
think
done studies on that. They've done studies with Monopoly where they give people more money to begin with. And those people always say, I played fairly, I played wisely, I deserve the success I got. You're not able to see that you had an advantage. It's just like, you're like, oh no, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. It's like, well, you had some expensive bootstraps, okay?
well, and I can say that like I have done pretty much everything on my own, but I can say that I had someone that's very successful in business to ask questions, to go over scenarios with, and that gave me a lot of edge. The reason I am so much business minded is because I had that influence in my life. If I had had another brother who wasn't really, just doing as much in the business world and was just kind of like, I don't know, he was an electrician, living his life, doing his thing, I maybe I wouldn't be where I am, right? Like maybe because I did have access that other people didn't. So I think one, being an Nepo baby, there's your birthright, right? And then there's the way that you interact and view the world and what you are deserving of and what you're not. And then I think, how you discern yourself from your parents or from your family, and how you make your success in your own right. Because I would hate living in someone's shadow. I would hate
Yeah.
everyone always thinking that my success came from something other than like what I did. And like my brother and I talk about that a lot. Like he could have helped me get into the video game industry. I could have been successful there. I would like he could have helped me get a job and I could have learned the industry and I could have been fine, right? I didn't. I went a completely different route. Like yes, he gives me advice on like business, but like I'm not in the same industry. I had to get here by myself, and I am very, very proud of that. It would suck if everyone questioned, yeah, but you're in the same industry. So like, did you really have to try that hard? Like, I'm sure that you still train, you still got an education, you still did things. So
Yeah, and I also wonder, like, how do you be a parent to a Nepo baby? Like, how do you instill those doses of reality into them when it's like, this is the whole reason you work so hard, is to give your
yeah.
kids a better life. And now you have to sort of educate them on injustice and kindness and compassion, if you still have any of that left in you after you've made your riches.
I think there's a ton of them out there. Like, I watch the way that like my brother has raised my niece, and I know like a lot of other like people who have done really good jobs at like, let's do volunteer work, let's engage in the community. They make my niece pay for stuff. Like in Portugal, like they're like, okay, you've already gotten like 6 things and we've been here for 3 days. Anything else you have, you got to pay for. And it's funny because at one point my brother gave her 50 euros and she was like, I have $50. And they were both like, that's a loan. You have to pay that back. So
Amazing.
I think that there's definitely ways to do it. Like, I think teaching the value, showing people what the other, like, what other people live like, right?
But I think
I
one thing that hopefully you can unlock is just like this kind of confidence that it's like, well, if you're going to have the privilege, use it, you know? And especially like with our guest that is as an example, I feel like she's just so like, no nonsense. Like, this is how the business works. Let's network. Let's like use leverage where we find it. Let's search engine optimize. And so I think, you know, where I'm sitting, I see plenty of examples of nepotism babies that they use that leverage and now they're really successful. They're really actually talented. And so it's like, for me, I'm like, well, hey, if you're going to use it, and then use your platform to help other people up.
I think you see it as a tool, right? Like, it is a tool in your shed, right? There are tons of people who try to make it whose parents are famous who do not. Let's be real. There's a ton of people who has like a famous musician father and they just aren't good in the musical world. So it is a tool. I think that people also need to see that tool as a privilege, right? It's something that you should be very fortunate and like grateful to have, not something that you deserve, not something that like it can be taken away from you, right? Like, your parents can blackball you, your parents can
Yeah.
do all sorts of things to you as well. You can be the embarrassment just as much as you can be the shining star.
Ooh, yes, because you got all that spotlight on you.
Yeah, like, so like if you're the one doing drugs, well, like the paparazzi might be following you too. So
I know. Well, think about like Sasha and Malia. What was it, Malia,
yeah,
that was like seen with a red Solo cup and smoking something, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
let the girl live.
Yeah, they do that to all the president's daughters. Yeah, they did that to Chelsea Clinton. Like it's not in the same way, but like she was wearing this or she was out with this guy. Like, yeah, I think that there's as much positive as there is. I think there's also a lot of negative. I think that if you treat your children, teach your children like you should, any other parent should. This is the reality of the world. There are goods and bads. You have this. You are privileged to have it, right? If you do not act right, it gets taken away. And if you are not a good person, then you don't get the value of these things. And I think that's how you, again, I'm saying this as a person who has no children. To be very, very clear, I do not know how to parent. But I do think, regardless of your status, wealth, or whatever, your access, you should be teaching your children to be good people. And so I think if you teach your child to be like, even if they're a Nepo baby, you teach them to be a good person. Like, it sounds like your friend is giving you advice too and helping you access the things that she does, right? And that's using her privilege to help others and bring her up with her, right?
Hey,
So I
don't
think,
out my secret.
well, she's not like, you worked to get that connection. Like, you made a connection in the media world. You're cultivating things. Like, there's work in all of this. But my point is it sounds like she's trying to help others as well and to bring them up with her and not say like, my mom and dad are so and so and you all have to respect me because otherwise we're gonna blackball you and no one's gonna like you.
Or just to like sit on your laurels and be
Yeah.
like, well, I don't have to try for anything in my life. I just will come into this money and then not do anything. And I don't know, that gets into a whole other sort of philosophical, moral question of, do we have to work and be productive and have utility, and is not our mere existence enough? But I think there's things that we can do in this world.
That's an AI question. No, that's like, I honestly think we should bring on somebody from AI to talk about that, because I think in the near future we are going to be pretty useless in a lot of ways.
Yay!
She said it. I'm not saying I'm promoting it. Although if I
like,
do,
not everyone, you don't like have to tie your value to work. There is a argument for like being a beautiful expression of yourself is enough, but also it's like, how are you going to examine your life, level up, grow, change, bring value into this world, in your friendships, in your community, in your pursuits, and not just, live on this assumption of generational wealth.
I think you're right. I have so many questions. It's not about like how you do it. It's more of like the philosophy and like what you do with it and like how you can create change and create good and how you can use that privilege to have a positive impact on the world, right? Like I think that I'm excited to learn more.
And give us some juicy stories from her parents
The
and
juice,
some
the
little
goss.
behind the scenes of how to be your best Nepo baby self.
I love it. One day maybe we'll know.
Let's go, baby.
All right, cool kids. Welcome back from the break. I hope you had a nice little time there. You got all your tidings done. Today, we're going to learn some new facts, some new things. We're going to go out into the universe. Nope, we're not going to the universe. We are going back at home. Bex, where are we going?
Hopefully, we're going to find some generational wealth. Here with us in the pod studio today, we have the doubled over and doubly hilarious Jesse Zand. Jesse, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm sorry. I have a dog that's being very needy. Hang on. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
We normally have cats that do this.
Already with the dependence.
Is that the Nepo baby to the Nepo baby?
This is the Nepo baby to the Nepo baby. She's the chosen one, the one who'll carry the lineage forward.
Classic Nepo baby accessory.
Of course, yeah. White, gross
little white dog.
Little white dog with the gross eyes. I'm really on brand. It's really important to me to just keep it really true,
I'm glad. We needed that in our lives today.
Well, I know Jessie through comedy. She's a stand-up queen. What else is in your forte?
So I also, as a day job, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, specialize in influencer marketing. So I actually do luxury influencer marketing for a major automotive brand's agency of record. And I've been doing that for about 5 years now. So I kind of parlayed what I knew about the industry as a Nepo baby to kind of segue into something a little bit different before I ended up finding my way right back into stand-up and Nepo baby activities. So here we are.
I'm really excited to find out what Nepo baby activities are because I have absolutely no idea.
I promise you they're as long as it's not like dropping your parents' name at like some sort of like restaurant or whatever, it's not as glamorous as you assume. At least for me, I'm sure for like Judd Apatow's kids, like like Maud Apatow and Iris Apatow, I'm sure it's much more glamorous. But yeah, no. But just to score you guys, I would give you guys like an 8 out of 10. I think you guys, there were some points that I think were interesting that you brought up that expanded a little bit some of the things that I knew just, and have experienced growing up, but to hear it in a different light was really interesting. So I'd give you guys an 8 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, this is the one we're ready for. This is what we've been waiting all our lives to be.
Okay, so I guess where do we start is what makes you a Nepo baby?
Well, both my parents are actors. My mom danced on Broadway. She was in 8 Broadway shows. She was in the original cast of Working and the original cast of Dancin'. Bob Fosse hired her when she was 16 and put her in several musicals. Then she moved out to California and was in several television series. Again, these are like, I'm assuming the general age demographic of this pod and you guys on there is like, if I were to drop her credits, you guys would be like, cool, like awesome. Like, but this is what makes me Nepo baby. But like back in the 80s, yeah, she was a big B-list C-lister. So woohoo for me. And then she met my dad on the set of the television series that she was the star of, Alien Nation, which I have a bit about in my stand-up. And my dad also happened to be an actor writer, was more into theater, but also acted and was in a few movies. Um, he played a terrorist in several movies, so that was fun for me to
Several
watch.
movies.
Yeah,
Typecast.
yeah, very
Typecast.
typecast. And
Damn.
ironically too, like I don't know how other Nepo babies feel, but I personally hate watching what my parents have done. Like I don't watch any of it. Like I look at it from afar on the IMDb just to like
Okay.
as a frame of reference, but like I refuse to watch any of it because I personally think it's a very dissociative experience to watch your parents like these are people so inherently for who they are, like the back of your hand. And so to like watch them like play pretend is like a bizarre experience. Like they're dressed up in makeup and different clothes and like acting different. And it's a really weird experience as a child to be like, what the fuck is mom doing? Like, what is she doing? Um, so yeah, another one of my mom's roles is she was in the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Dolly Parton. So
She met
that
Dolly?
yes,
Okay, I love that. That's pretty great.
yeah, Dolly is an icon. Dolly is the
Mhm.
nicest, sweetest. Everything that everybody says about her is true. She's amazing. That was like one of the few Hollywood tidbits that I was like, oh, thank God. Like
Oh yeah.
they're always like, never meet your heroes, and like I haven't. I just hear it through my parents, obviously. So I was like, oh, thank God, Dolly's like intact. Like Dolly's image
Yeah.
is intact for me.
Yes, no
It's like that
scandals
and
for
Betty
Dolly.
White. Don't shame those names.
Yeah,
Those were
no, you'll be
important.
cursed.
My parents aren't famous, but my dad is a writer and he has written some very strange science fiction, but I relate in the sense that I refuse to read it. But it's right there on my bookshelf, right next to, I've got like things that I'm published in. And so I've got, I filed this alphabetically. We're right there next to each other on the shelf. But I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if it was television, I'd be like, oh, that's consumable, that's palatable. Maybe I could watch it. But something about like a fiction book written by the mastermind, my father, it's like, I don't want to read that diary.
See, like on the other hand, my brother does writing as well on like Reddit, has a pretty big following, and he once read to me the character that he based off of me, and the first line just starts off as like the most dysfunctional human in existence. I was like, I see how you see me now.
Like,
It's
thanks.
fine. Thanks. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine seeing your parents acting. Actually, I have zero interest in ever seeing that
Yeah,
happen.
it's a bizarre experience. I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that that is like a record that I'll have to show my kids, and like hopefully by the time my parents are decrepit and like no longer like the vision that I know them as now, like for my children when they meet them, it won't be as such a dissociative experience. But for me, knowing them and being very close to them and being an only child, it is something that I was like at a young age, I was like, yeah, just stop showing me. Like, I don't want to know. And it also really informed my disdain. I mean, not just that, but my parents' experience in Hollywood, although I say I'm an aspiring Nepo baby, that is my a bit in my act for stand up and part of the persona. But personally, like I had a real disdain towards Hollywood for most of my life, and I had a real reluctance to get into it because of the stories and things that I had heard, and the way that the industry operates. It's very antithetical to what I believe in and like my morals. And so there was a real reluctance for me to be involved in like anything showbiz for up until I would say within the last few years in doing stand up. Um, so it's an interesting experience. And I think growing up in LA, like, and I was privileged enough to go to private school for a bit, and like growing up with like other Nepo babies, like, it, that that lack of reality that you grow up in really does affect you. And I'm lucky that I was able to like, leave Los Angeles and go to school elsewhere and like see other parts of life and other people's lives and other realities, because I can see how kids here who never leave or who are, grow up in the industry, turn out to be the monsters that we hear about. Um, and so it's been an interesting journey for me to kind of like navigate and piece together all these conflicting parts and now doing stand up. dealing with that, because that is in, showbiz adjacent. Um, and that's been an interesting thing to try and contend with as well.
Were
So what like
you
go
I'm
ahead,
just
Beth.
wondering, like, at what point you came into the picture? Like, were they still making TV or doing any stage productions once you were
So
born?
great question. By the time I was born, they had transitioned into a writing duo. So my parents were,
Slay. Oh my God. Your parents, it's like, sucks when your parents have a cool relationship, doesn't it? Don't you think?
it is quite intimidating because they're like best friends. And I'm like, I'm at least like two more failed marriages away from finding my soulmate. Like we're already a 26-year-old divorcee. Like we've got two more in the tank. I can just feel it. Like my psychic doesn't even need to tell me, like, you know? Um, but yeah, so they ended up transitioning and being a writing duo. They wrote on several different television series. They ended when I was 4. They were on Felicity, which was one of J.J. Abrams' shows, and I was 4 when they were on that show, and by that time, I have memory. Like some of my earliest memories is being on set on Felicity and stuff, and that was a really exciting, like the hair. I remember the hair and makeup women were like so nice to me, and they gave me all these clips, and like they were just so sweet, and like pretend to like make me up and whatever. But I also remember my parents working a lot and not seeing them very much, and having a nanny, and like after I turned 4 or 5, my parents were like, my mom's really struggled to get pregnant with me. And so she was like, we tried so hard for this kid. We finally have it, and we never see her. And so when I was 4, they decided to retire and just kind of like live their lives. So I was lucky in that sense because it was like, they still had industry friends and I was still around it, but I didn't like lose my parents, like I had them very present in my life, which thank God, because your girl was a hot freaking mess for a minute in high school and like needed
Y'all
all
are.
the attention she could get. Like in like, not institutionalized, but like, let's get close to it. So I was really grateful that I had 2 parents that were really present in my life to help me through that. Even though they're actors and like, creatives and like batshit crazy. Like I'm grateful I had someone.
No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's also really cool that they could essentially retire so young. Like I feel like that's the dream for most people. Um, but you said like you had been like so against the industry for a long time. Like what is it that like made you decide to like come back to like something more adjacent to it and be in kind of that world again?
Um, Stand up for me has always been something that I have loved, like since I was very young. Like my dad, I think if he hadn't gone his path and, had the gumption, if you will, to like go to open mics and try it. Like I do believe he would have been a really successful stand up. But it is a soul, as Rebecca knows, it is a soul crushing activity to try and do for funds.
So wait, he has tried it already though?
No, not yet. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Side note, my dad told me this morning, I think I'm going to go start doing open mics. And I was like, God help me. God help me.
He's gonna kill it. He's gonna be amazing. He's gonna have a second career as a
From
stand-up,
your mouth
and
to
you're
God's ears, Rebecca, because I'm going to send him and you can deal with that while I'm in,
oh, I'll give him the business.
yeah, while I'm in Indonesia, so far away. Like, um,
Okay, can you imagine a more classic Nepo Baby sentence? I'm gonna be in Indonesia while my dad is doing stand-up, doing his
yeah.
first open mic.
Yes, yes. You know what? Again, we are staying on brand here. Okay,
Yeah.
we're staying. I'm an aspiring Nepo baby, and every day I get closer to that dream. Okay,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
every day. But yeah. So to answer your question, stand up was something that I always loved, and I had someone in my life pass away about a year ago, and he was a really big force in my life and my adolescence, and it was one of my best friend's dad, and so we would always go to his house and we'd be like shooting the shit, and he was like, you got to get up there, you got to do it. And he ended up passing, and one of the last conversations we had was like, you got to just get up and do it, you got to just get up and do it. And so after he passed, I had several conversations with my friend, and she was like, you got to just do it, you got to do it for him, you got to do it for me. And I was like, fuck it, lean in, let's go. And I think I'm at a place in my journey too with like, I alluded to like, mental health stuff and whatever. And I think I'm at a place now where like there's a level of confidence in my voice and who I am that even the soul crushing cataclysmic bombs that I've experienced, which is part of the journey, I'm able to bounce back from in a way that I don't think a few years ago I would have. And so that's kind of what has led me back into it. But I never wanted to do act. Like when I was younger, I kind of wanted to do acting, but they like really like crushed that dream early. There's a vivid memory that I've shared with Rebecca about how I was in a Ralph's parking lot and my mom's like, "Look, honey, like your eyes, they're just like too small for camera." And I'm like, "Bitch, I have your eyes. Like, what are we talking about?" Upon
Wow.
reflection,
Okay.
on reflection, I realized that it was a way for her to protect me from like the rejection and the, all the other horrors that go in with that industry, particularly with acting and for women. And I'm grateful for it, honestly. I think that was like, it was maybe not the best delivery, maybe not the best sentiment, but it was effective.
Yeah, I mean, there was ways to go about that that could have like caused a little bit less trauma, but like our parents really have to like slip it in there every once in a while. Anytime I've ever had dark hair, like someone will be like, "Oh, Jackie, like, oh, I really like your hair," and I was like, "She looks better with it light." And I'm just like, you can't even let somebody else compliment it. So I think it's just like it's a parental thing to like
It totally
they
is.
think they're helping and they think that they're doing the right thing, and you're like, that's the exact opposite of what I needed in this scenario. But now I have that to talk to my therapist about. So thank
Okay,
Yeah.
you.
now Jesse, open your eyes for this one. Oh, they are open. Oh no, okay, just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
No, they're perfect, and I actually would like to think it was a cloaked protection of like, I don't want you to be exposed to predators and the business and the rejection and the objectification.
I think it was honestly like I think I brought this up to her later on, and she's been like, "I don't remember that." I'm like, "Well, I would not like the Ralph's parking lot detail is so
Yeah.
specific. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I had the
Mm-hmm.
imagination to come up with that one. Like I
Yeah.
don't. But I think it was one of those things where it was just like, I don't want you to have to go through this the way that I did because, it's brutal. It's really a brutal industry. And I think stand up is its own lane in a lot of ways because like the cream rises to the top no matter what, pretty much. I mean, you have to be smart about it, you have to network and whatever, but there's a lot of variables in acting that don't necessarily have to do with talent, and it's like luck and looks and things, and it feels like stand up is kind of on its own path.
It's more of a meritocracy. Are you
Yeah.
funny or not?
Yes,
That,
exactly.
that's
Well, it's
kind of
like
the
less
ultimate test.
superficial. I feel like you're being judged in like most of acting, like on the like the depthness, right? Like, can you pretend to do something and can you look good in it, right? Whereas I feel like there's something very intellectual to comedy. Like you can have people that go for like the really like poop jokes and like whatever, and that works for some people, and then you can get these like really really like high level like intellectuals who it takes a little bit sometimes to get their jokes, and they're that hilarious because you're like, wow, you
Yeah,
really made a lot of connections.
yeah, and I think also too like with stand up, I almost feel the urge to like get uglier. Like I was telling Rebecca, I was like, I feel most comfortable on stage when I am in a burlap sack, like no makeup, haven't showered, and because that is when I'm like most free. Like I don't
Mhm.
care what you think of me, I'm gonna swing for the fucking fences, and that's just how this goes. I find myself actually more uncomfortable on stage when I'm made up than I am in a trash bag. I would prefer to be in a trash bag.
I mean, have you actually, is the trash bag like a euphemism here, or have you actually worn a trash bag? It's
I've just like
comedy.
wear extremely baggy clothes, like
Okay.
as baggy and like dirty as I can get. Like if it has a stain on it, even better. Like I just don't want the fact that I I want the focus to be on what I'm saying and not what I look like at all.
But
So
also, to be very clear, you just have an innate sense of style, and I've never seen you without a nice Italian patent leather boot, without the palazzo pants, without the full look. I mean, it is like a Wednesday Addams institutionalized vibe, but it is
yes,
glamour.
as you put it, the girl in the psych ward with cigarettes, which it might be my next tattoo. I'm not sure.
I like it. I'm here
Yeah,
for it.
no, it is style is also something I think that's like very, that's a way of self-expression, and it's always been a way for self-expression that I've got from my mom, all those years of her living in New York and like thrifting. Like, I'm lucky that I've had that like fashion inspo.
Did your parents give you like tests like, oh, we're not going to give you full access to the trust fund until you get a job, or like we're going to
Oh
make you learn this sense of work ethic this way, or
Oh,
like
100%. Like, I had to get a job as soon as I could get one, essentially. Like, and it was, here's your allowance, but like, you use this to get things. Like, we're not going to buy you toys. Like, you don't get to, like,
mm,
don't go to the store and like get you things. Like, that's not like food, yes, but like, not, gifts.
Buy your own food.
Yeah. 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 No food. Yeah. Buy your own food, deal with it. Um, yeah, no, so I was 16 when I got my first job and pretty much worked from then on out. And then when I got to college, I got scholarships all through college and got grants. And I'm in student loan debt, like I have to pay off. Like, they weren't going to pay that off. And as glamorous as it sounds to retire when your daughter's 4, it's not necessarily the most financially feasible. And to my parents' credit, they spent a lot of money on my early education and sending me to private school, that wasn't sustainable. And so I had to end up going to public school when I was in 7th grade, or 8th grade, excuse me. And I'm actually so grateful for that experience. I wish I had gone to public school my entire education, because going to private school in Los Angeles is its own level of psychosis. And detachment from reality that I wouldn't wish on anyone. There was a level of distance that I think her parents wanted to smartly give her from the industry. And I think the people who do that, the actors, whoever in Hollywood, the ones that do that for their kids end up being a lot more well adjusted.
Yeah. I think that's like fair. Like, did you see, like, are there any like people who you're like, okay, the nepotism went too bad, and now you're like, well, like the person you said with like a ballet studio in high school, like there's no need for like that. And I've told Bex, I grew up in a wealthy area in the Bay Area, right? Like, I was not wealthy, but like after my father passed, my mom wanted me to be there because she had friends there, and it was like easier for her life, right? So, but I went to a high school, and at one point the mascot of the school was the Mustangs. And so one of the dads of the cheerleaders bought all of the girls on the team a Mustang.
That's
Not
nuts.
just his daughter, all of them.
wait, the car or the horse?
The car.
Either way, crazy, unhinged, but makes a
The
difference.
horse would have been a bigger flex, though, because that would have been the housing for the horse.
Stable.
That would have been the real flex. The car, maybe
Mhm.
probably had a hook.
Okay.
He owned a car dealership. That's what he like. He like owned multiple, like, so it was probably very cheap for him, but it's still like
That's still. I mean,
it's unnecessary, right? Like, it's
And they were
completely
all
unnecessary.
totaled within 4 years.
yeah.
Right. I was just pissed I wasn't a cheerleader. I mean, I was goth, so I really wasn't going to be in that world, but
That's a sleigh, though. Goth is a sleigh.
thank you.
Yeah, no, okay, so like unhinged like stories. Should I just swing for the fences?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a follow-up question, but yeah, I'd love to hear an unhinged story. Like, there's things that like us, plebes.
Yeah.
I was never of money. I mean, I come from hillbillies on one side, immigrants on the other. We don't got no foothold nowhere. I got to be a Nepo baby to my parents, I guess, maybe.
I don't even know if I can tell this story, but like,
I mean, we could bleep identifying detail. I'm like, I don't
Give
know.
us names. No, you don't know. There are no names necessary.
okay, I'll tell if you can you bleep?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
believe.
Okay,
Bleep whatever you want.
we're gonna bleep this, but
Okay.
real piece of work. Real piece of work. Struggled, I think, with some mental health issues, to put it mildly. Shocker.
Shocking.
And I remember hearing a story that he was really pissed at his mother, I believe, which it would be and they have a room in their house full of Louis Vuitton luggage, which, if you don't know, Louis Vuitton luggage is like the smallest suitcase is like $10,000.
Yeah.
And like then it's going up. It's like Birkin bags. Like they're insanely expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in there and he destroyed all of them. He like stepped
Yes, King.
like fuck that shit up. Oh,
Just on like on a like revenge level, or on just a like off this plane level?
yeah, off this plane, I would assume something was something was taken away or found.
They're like, you can't go to the Bahamas this weekend. And
Yeah,
he's like, I will cause enough damage that you could buy a Caribbean island.
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. So it's
I
like
mean-
taking the luggage and like stepping through it, like destroying it.
But
so
that's the thing is that luggage is made really, really well.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
He
you
must have
gotta
had
be like, you don't just step
Cutco
through that.
knives
Like,
or something.
yeah, you gotta be spending some time. Like, you know, really. Wow, I think it would take me at least like 10 minutes per bag.
Yeah. Well, if mommy's never home, you probably have a lot of time on your hands.
True.
Well, I don't know. It just must be like disorienting to grow up with like the ultimate kind of like maybe like a safety net in one sense of like monetary stability, but like not always emotional or spiritual or like real world stability in a sense. And like, I don't know. My follow-up question seems dumb now because I was going to ask if like you learned like Nepo etiquette, like when not to drop names and like how to show up to a place.
Don't share somebody's darkest moments on a podcast. That was probably one of the Nepo etiquettes, but I'm aspiring.
But we
right?
missed
So
that day, so it's okay. Actually, you know what? We're setting new trends for the new Nepo babies. Younger children, listen, come to our podcast and spill all of the secrets. Bex and I are here to listen.
Yeah,
We're here to bleep.
liberating the Nepos.
And yeah, we're just supporting over here. That's all we're
honestly,
doing.
fuck it. Like, what is he gonna do? He doesn't even know what day of the week it is. Like, it's fine. Like, realistically, like, I don't, whatever. Like, he did it. What are we gonna do it?
My own brother's done far worse things, and I'm sure one day I'll talk about it on this podcast. But like, destroying a couple Louis Vuitton bags, even like 40 Louis Vuitton bags, is nothing on my brother. So you know, like it doesn't matter if you're rich and famous or if like whatever you are, everyone's got a family member.
And to be clear, I'm on his side.
Yeah, honestly, I think if I remember the details of the story, I probably was too. That was just a funny one where it was just like if it was me, like me being resourceful and like cunning, like I'd take it and go pawn it and like get what I wanted. Right?
But that's why it's punk rock, because it's like it's not about the money.
You're right.
It's about your attachment to it.
Yeah,
and that's the fucked up.
Wow, we're getting deep on this. I didn't even consider that. I didn't even consider that. You're totally right. No, it is. It's like an existential fuck you. Like, you love these more than me, so now you're gonna weep over these.
It is actually, yeah. I'm on board. I'm back. I've circled back to being on board again. So, okay, I won't destroy. Honestly, that's just like. I couldn't even get myself to spend that kind of money. Like, I think about that often. Like, if I had that much money, I still wouldn't spend $10,000 on a bag. There's just like, I couldn't, right? So then to destroy said bag, oh my Lord.
Yeah, and I think that is where like the crux of like the Nepo baby like negative connotation comes from. It's like the lack of understanding hard work and the value of money, and that is where I think, you know, a lot of the media is talking about them getting like opportunities handed to them. But I think the crux of that is there's this general undertone of it of like, you don't understand the value of hard work. And there's some truth to that. I think when you're going and you're smashing Louis Vuitton bags instead of like, you know, talking about your feelings, there's a bit of a disconnect there. But I think there's also examples of Nepo babies who are, you know, ultimately Nepo baby is a place of privilege. And I definitely recognize my privilege. Like, even though, you know, my parents retired when I was really young, and they definitely both have like this really illustrious like resume. You know, my mom still works. Like, my mom actually went back and is now like teaching at musical theater school here in
Oh,
Orange
cool.
County. And it's both for passion, but it's also for out of necessity. Like she needs to make the money. Um, so I definitely had an interesting relationship around money and the value of working because I had seen it from my mom and my mom. Um,
Yeah, what a slay that your mom was the more successful actor and is still the breadwinner.
yeah, yeah. But as I've gotten older too, like I have this whole thing in my act about how like my dad's like I think my dad's gay, but no one's told him yet. Like, and I always say stand up for me comes from a grain of truth. And like, no, is my dad gay? Probably not. But like the gender role, the traditional gender roles in my house are definitely reversed. Like my dad makes sure that we're fed. Like he's cooking, he's the one cooking, he's the one making sure we always have food in the house, and you know I appreciate that now. Like, growing up and like seeing that, like he's the one who's like making sure we're fed. Um, and so seeing the different ways that manual work, translates into different aspects of your life, I think I had a very unique experience with it. And I feel really lucky to have it because it's shaped the way that I approach the world, definitely.
Do you
Well, I think
think
we like
that, yeah, go for it, Jackie.
I think we talk about it in like part one of like the effects that has on you and like the opposite then, right? Like what you've had to try and do to make your own name for yourself and like how there is a place of privilege for that, but I think there's also an area where people have an assumption about you that you're always going to have to overcome and like you're always going to have to question. I feel like when you start out like, oh, is this really me or is this the name, and having to really like feel like you're standing on your own 2 feet.
Yeah, luckily they haven't worked in a while. So I'm not really worried about that. But I do think for me, it is like it manifests in other ways. I think it manifests in like because both my parents are writers and creatives, and like shocker guys, spoiler alert, I'm a Nepo baby who lives at home. Like I said, 26-year-old divorcee. We are thriving with the Pilates in the pool, the Pilates machine in the pool here. And guess what? They're never getting rid of me. It's just not happening. It's just in the no, it's not happening. But now that I'm living at home and I have this experience with stand up. What I do struggle with is not absorbing their comedic voices. And so
Mm.
and so a lot of my act is incorporating my experiences with my parents, but as I'm starting to kind of develop my voice, I'm starting to see like, oh wait, like is that my voice or is that their voice? And so that's, I think, the part that I'm having to unpack, which is a unique experience. I feel like most Nepo babies, though, and this was the 8 out of 10 piece, don't give a shit that their parents are the ones that paved the way for them. That's
Mm.
why all they do is change their name, right? Like I think Riley Coog or whatever, the one who was in the Daisy Six, the Amazon
Oh,
show.
is she a nepotism baby? I did not know.
She's Lisa Presley's daughter. Just learned that.
But see, then you're also like, is there some like math to it? Because daughter of a singer, great singer, and a like great, charming, charismatic person. I have to give some credit to it. Or like Hannah Einbinder, where I'm like, but
Yeah.
she's out there. She's so talented. She has the like comedic voice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a genetic, not a genetic, but like there's a environmental component, I think,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
being
If you're
around.
exposed to it. And
Yeah. If
yeah.
you're exposed to it. I don't think it's a make or break though. Like I think if it was, I think if the industry was just Nepo babies, like it would be so homogenous and like boring and like stale. And like we need people to come up from different backgrounds in order for great art to be made and to resonate with more people. But I do think there are some cases where it's like, yeah, of course she's a great singer, and like can't even remember Riley, whatever her name is, Lisa Marie's kid. Like it makes sense that she did great in that role and like was perfect for that type of Fleetwood Mac esque
Mm-hmm.
portrayal. So I think there's an element of it that's like genetic too, but like most of it I think is just like environmental and like what you see around you and what you see is possible too. Like I think I was lucky to see my mom play an alien. Woohoo! Like that was fun, but it was also like, wow, okay, my mom,
Brave.
like, yeah, brave, exactly, so brave. So like the world's your oyster, right? And if you just work hard enough and commit, like things can happen that you don't expect.
How do you like maintain a sense of like culture outside of this like bubble of the business?
It's really hard, I have to say. Particularly being biracial, and this is something that I've been also trying to work into my act. It's really hard. And since my dad is Persian, obviously he was cast as a terrorist. That's
This explains the terrorist comment now. Okay.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, but he is, I guess he's not white presenting, but it's not like you look at him and you go Middle Eastern, like ethnically vague, if you will. And my mom's white and she's from Kansas. So Hollywood was, it's a great question, Rebecca, because Hollywood was kind of like the culture for a lot of my life, and like theater and like, you know, biz, inside biz baseball knowledge and stuff like that, what was talked about in my house. And then when I started to depart from that a little bit and I didn't really give a shit, finding my own culture was really difficult, and kind of navigating with like, there are heritage parts of me, like being Persian and like being really close to my grandmother, like that I had to like investigate more, and I'm still investigating now, like as now being in stand up and stuff. It's like something I definitely want to start talking about. But it is insular, like when you grow up, especially when you grow up in Los Angeles, like I don't know many people now in my adult life who have grown up here, and it's a bubble. And to try, I think the best way to avoid that is to get the fuck out for a little bit, like go to college elsewhere, make friends with people outside of your immediate neighborhood and environment. Like I started surfing, and so now I have a community of surf friends that are from all different walks of life, and some of them are from Los Angeles, but like they grew up in a completely different environment than I did. And I think that's important for anybody, regardless if you're looking to be in the industry or not. Finding other people who are different than you and different perspectives to stretch yours. Otherwise, you're just going to be really, really, really close-minded.
Yeah, echo chamber. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
my oldest brother, I have two brothers. My oldest brother, very like homogenous in who he spends time with as well. And we always like talk about the differences between us, because like I like to think I'm a collector. I have friends from like, I have CEO friends, I have very successful friends, I have athlete friends. I also have friends that are essentially homeless, right? Like, and I like all walks of life, all different types of people. Like Bex could not be more different than me. Like she is the creative actor, comedian, where I'm over here corporate business lady, right? Like it worked out well when we made a podcast, but I think you're right. Like if you surround yourself with like voices that are similar to your own, that's all you're ever going to hear.
Yeah.
And like expanding your mind no matter who you are is so important. And it like, politically even nowadays, I think this country is in a
100%.
like we're in a scary place if we keep just listening to one side. Like we need to start like hearing other voices and seeing how we're all the same.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. And I think when I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, and so that was kind of my like venture out of Los Angeles, and obviously didn't go very far. I just went up the fucking coast. But that was as far as this sheltered Nepo baby could go, and this only child.
What is their reputation? I don't know about UC Santa Cruz.
Oh, it is like the hippiest, dippiest, like
The banana slugs.
Banana slugs is our mascot. Like, if you're not in the forest doing mushrooms and smoking weed, like you're not part of the culture. Like you're not really being a part of the school. But on the flip side, it was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. And I'm so grateful for it, because it was, first of all, for somebody who grew up here who was like, yeah, I'm liberal. Girl, you do not know liberal until you go up to Santa Cruz. Like you have no idea. And it was a real wake up call for me to actually like it was the first time I had kids in my high school who had come out and who were bisexual or gay, and like that was just normal in Los Angeles. Like that was not that I mean, you didn't even bat an eye. But I hadn't been exposed to anybody who was non-binary or trans, and so going to Santa Cruz, there was a large community of trans and non-binary folk, and that was a real, not wake up call sounds like the wrong word, but like exposure to me to that community, and I was really grateful for it. Learning how to like use pronouns, and actually and do that in discussion, and like you may fuck up, but like having to move through that and be like, okay, correct yourself, and like navigating the social aspects of it, of interacting with trans and non-binary folks, like that was huge for me, and I'm so glad I did, because it's created a much more well-rounded person in me. And I wouldn't have had that if I'd stayed in Los Angeles. Because there are...
That's surprising, yeah, because you would think I would associate those things with just like anyone in LA or, you know, broadly the coastal elites.
Yeah,
But
and not really. I mean, I think maybe now when you're growing up, like it's probably a lot more common, but when I was like like a decade ago in high school, like it wasn't. Um it was just like, oh, you're either gay or bi and that's fine. Whatever, you know? But I was really grateful for that experience at Santa Cruz, even though, and it, ironically, I got there and I was like, oh, I am not hipster enough for this. I My armpit hair is not long enough, and I
nope.
don't want to dye it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could do blue. You
Yeah,
could
I
go
could
with
do
some
blue.
blue.
I am not cut out for this. Like it was a real wake up call for me, and I was like, okay, like you are not like the stoner hipster you think you are, or you were in Los Angeles. Like you're actually a basic bitch. Like you need to like wake up. Um, but
It's
it was,
very Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is like the most crunchy granola of the locations. I will give you that. Like, I'm sure you were a very hipster stoner. It just was, there's a new bar with Santa Cruz.
yeah, there
Yeah, and
was
then some of that also is just blurring into the generation of like, and
right.
are you
Totally.
Gen Z? You're Gen
Yeah,
Z.
I'm Gen Z.
You're Gen Z, if ever there were. And you know, Gen Alpha is gonna do something new and kooky. We don't even know yet. You
Oh yeah,
know,
they'll be off social media. I think my prediction, as someone who works at influencer marketing, like I think they're gonna be off. Like
right? Yeah, because it's always like the pendulum, and it's
they're
like
gonna think it's cringe. They're not gonna want to go on it. They're not gonna want to post. It's gonna be a real shift. I don't know what they're gonna do instead. They're gonna do something else, whatever it is. I don't know. Hopefully, change the world. Hopefully, run for office.
Education,
Like,
I don't know, science, technology, engineering. There's a lot of things they could do
yeah,
if
leave
we
the
got off the
posting to
TikToks.
us. Like, I'm happy to slut it up on Instagram. Like, I will take that. I will take that gauntlet and I'll ride it. And you guys can change the world. I'm too lazy, far too lazy.
I'm like, is my niece?
Okay, have you done any like extreme, like exactly what we think of nepotism babies? Like, have you been on a jet? Have you like gotten out of a speeding ticket, totaled a car, bought a new one the next day?
She smiled.
I think it's less about what I've done and more what I've been around, right? Like, I think I'm just gonna expose myself. Okay. So like when I was like 14, like when I was still at private school, like there was like Bella Thorne was in the mix. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just like weird. Like, why is Bella Thorne at this person's party? Like that girl's tall. Like we're all 14 and she looks like she's 18. You know, like things like that where you're like, oh, you just like are like, what are you doing here? And just being like exposed to like weird like kids who are kind of famous, like, and then because like I again had no interest in being a part of it, and then but growing up here like was very much around it, and so that was the weird part, was like seeing all your friends. Like also I think that here's the class of nepotism baby thing, and this isn't just a Nepo baby, but this is just LA kids in general. Like when you're in high school here, there are promoters who like funnel underage girls into the clubs. Spoiler alert, guys. Sorry to ruin your business model, but like it's time you guys stop funneling underage girls into fucking Poppy and Nightingale and whatever the fuck, One Oak and all that. Thank God One Oak's gone. But yeah, so like there would be promoters who would like funnel us 16, 17-year-olds and give us like a fake ID at the door, and like we'd just be in like clubs like at in high school, and like that was a wild experience to be like, oh, I'm literally basically just like a seat filler until like hotter models come in at midnight and then they just shoo the high schoolers away. Bizarre.
So
That
I
was
definitely
gross.
went to clubs underage and got into all sorts of stuff, but no one gave me the fake ID. I had to.
Yeah, I had to risk my own
Fake ID
biscuit.
first.
Okay.
no, it was so fucked up. They'd be like, okay, this girl kind of looks like you. There you go. Like, okay, you. And then they get back in the club. They're like, okay, give it back to me. Give me the back of the vase.
Oh my God.
Oh, because they didn't want you to keep it. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Sorry.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was wild. I think that was like probably the most Nepo Baby experience there is like seeing, and then of course like the legit Nepo babies, like not the D-listers like me, they like get to sit on the booths or whatever because like they had the clout, um, and that
Do you
was
know who
always
my dad is? Do you know?
yeah. Do you know
I
who my dad is?
I just wish I could have said that once.
Because he doesn't. He's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
Um,
and, like I'm like yeah. Do you know my dad? Who my dad is? He was in like the 1981 Into the Night, like with Michelle. You know what I mean? It's like cool, like. But again, that's also such a place of privilege to be like saying that and being like, oh yeah, that's not cool. Like it is cool. It is cool that your parents were in something. Will I ever watch it? Absolutely not. Is it still cool? Sure. And that's a place of privilege to be like, yeah, my parents actually like made art that was like put into a movie with like other big names and stuff. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, all right, it's not as cringe as I like think it is. It's fine.
It's pretty cool.
It's cool.
adorable.
It's fine.
You should own it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
My mom
Jackie?
was like in a grocery store. That's what I can brag on. Like my mom has like I don't know, went to the gas station. She was never in a movie. She never Mm-mm.
Yeah, but you also like don't have to like see your mom's sex scene. So
Nope.
Got you there, Jackie.
Nope. But I have seen things I didn't need to. So,
that's true. And that was real so 50-50. Touche.
you know,
Yeah.
you know.
I've seen my friend's parents' sex tape, but it was the at-home kind, and it was the accident kind that we did. It was like one of those things where they taped over a VHS, and we were like, Halloween, what's this? And
You know
then
what's great is that's what people used to have to do. And now we just have something in our pocket that can do it for us. Just
Yeah. Now we just have a spank bank on the go.
yeah, and when
Maybe-
mine comes out, I'm gonna say it was deep faked.
Okay.
Or you should just be proud of it.
Or just be proud of it, yeah.
It's clout. It's fine. In this day and age, it's exposure. And, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Literally.
Yeah,
Mhm.
literally. Quite literally.
Well, are we ready for our exposure, Jackie? Are we ready
No.
to shred our stuff down the red carpets and
Absolutely not.
take another take on how to do this life?
I mean, how to do this life and how we should have done it was really just being born better. And unfortunately, we are already here. And I have been trying to get a new father for like 17, 20 something years, and I still don't have one. So I don't think that I'm going to win the lottery on getting my Nepo parents.
And
quite
listen,
yet.
I've been working on a daddy, but he's playing hard to get right now. So
You guys can borrow mine.
Thank you. Bex and I have a lot of trauma. Okay. I think the first thing that you do is be born, right, to the right parents, which we did not do, but now we know that was
But
the
some
step
key
that we
learnings
missed.
along the way. You make all
Mhm.
the money you need in a lifetime, and then you have a baby.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that is what I am trying to do.
Yep.
And then you retire, which I also liked that idea. I was very fond.
Then you work
and-
for pleasure. Heard of
Mhm.
it?
No, never heard of that. Pleasure?
But honestly, it does, like, your parents sound like just a very benevolent case where they were like, oh, we noticed that like our child is spending fluent in Spanish. I don't know why I'm associating that with your nanny. Your nanny could have been Persian.
No,
or
you were right.
white.
No, you were right. You're right. Doris was 100% teaching me Spanish.
It's LA.
Yeah, it's LA. You're right on the money.
Spanish immersion, which is great for a growing brain. But then they were like, hey, we're going to take ourselves out of this like industry where we never get to see our child.
Yeah.
But they really like focused on like the actual tenets of family, of like they became a writing team because they wanted to work together, and they like focused more time on you and took you to the absolute ghetto of the gated pool backyard mansions that you live in now, so you could be a D-list.
Yeah, a D-list.
Almost Nepo baby.
An almost Nepo baby. And I honestly wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I look at those kids who, like, did get handed everything, and, like, I know my perspective and, like, my experiences are so much more valuable than being handed everything on a silver platter. And I think, if anything, like, that's, I think, the lesson in all of it is, like, you can be handed everything you want in your life, but at the end of the day, it's what you make of it and how you turn out and how you push yourself to be better than what was before you, regardless of who they were.
I think that's what we should all be doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that, like, the human, what, like, why are we here? Why is there life, right? Like, it's to be better than the ones before us. Bex, any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Well, I hope I have like an egg or two left in there to one day be a nepo baby. You know, I'm not really into having kids, but Jesse? You mentioned having kids. Yeah, you think?
You know, it would require me to find someone that is even like playing for my team, also a bit. But I think eventually, I think I'm definitely on I'm going to wait and have kids when I'm older. I think my parents, waiting and being financially set, as best as they could was a lesson that I definitely took to heart and want to replicate, particularly if you have any intention, which I do, of staying in Los Angeles. Um, but I have thought about like, okay, so like, what does that look like when raising kids? And like, especially if I do find some modicum of success in stand up or what have you, like, how do you ground them in reality when all their peers are going to be little monsters? And I think
Well,
you
we're
just
not talking about Lady Gaga fans.
no, we are not talking. I mean, I wish. I mean, I wish we could just send them to the, We Were Born This Way concert
Mm,
preschool, and call it a day.
That'd be
Uh,
great.
that would be great. I think that's actually pitch hot take, Lady Gaga. That's your new business venture, a
TM,
preschool.
TM.
Yeah.
Monsters
We got this.
Academy.
This was our idea, Lady Gaga. The Gaga. The Gaga.
Okay, well, I'm gonna freeze some embryos.
Love it.
Jesse, what do you have? Do you have anything to plug? Any upcoming dates, shows, ideas, ventures, social media?
Keep a lookout for my podcast, Unhinged, which will be coming out in October. And then if you follow me on Instagram at Jesse Zand, JESSEZAND, you'll see some dates for some comedy shows coming up.
We will definitely link those in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming us on. Okay, that sentence almost got really weird. But thanks for coming
Thanks
on
for
the
coming on
show.
us.
Of course. Anytime, Rebecca. You know I'm always here for you.
It's been a while since I've had any
Perfect
relations, so
dismount.
Jesus, okay. All right, let's go be Nepo babies.
Let's do it. That was great. And that was the show. Thank you everyone for watching, and we hope you stay curious.
If you enjoyed this video, watch our other videos here on YouTube, or you should listen to the episode on We're Experts Now podcast. Bex, where can they find us?
You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart Music.
And what if they want to talk to us?
If you have ideas for something you want us to investigate, send us an email at we'reexpertspod@gmail.com. That's wereexpertspod@gmail.com.
Great job on that spelling.
Cool.
A+. Do you do this professionally?
I believe we're both doing it professionally right now.
Wow, people should know about this.
I completely agree, and you can find us on Instagram at We're Experts Now Pod.
Thanks again, and if you enjoy the show, subscribe and comment, and do not forget to leave a 5-star tip.
That's a great idea. Are you a podcast expert?
I think we both are. I think
We're experts now.
This has been a Just Being Better media production.